And welcome, David Levin here, Raising Your Game today. This is Tuesday, so we're talking about the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. This week, I want to finish up talking about the NBA documentary Starting Five on Netflix. Part 1 was last week. This is part 2, the rest of the story. So the lessons in part 1 had to do with the mental game directly. Focus on your craft and effort rather than outcomes. Accept that losing and failing is just part of being in the game. Understand that all the pressure and stress is actually a privilege, and it's actually what you asked for when you decided to compete in your sport. And commit to learning the mental game skills to put all those insights into action. The other piece I wanted to talk about from the show is the role athletes' families play. I really loved that part of it too. In the show, you see the players with their kids and their wives and partners. You hear over and over how committed they are to their families, to being good dads, good partners. Also, you hear about the role their parents played in getting them to the NBA in the first place. They're just an inseparable part of their lives and careers. And I was super happy to see that. In the first place, because you can so easily imagine it not being that way, right? That all that fame and money and attention at such a young age would pull these young men in the opposite direction, sort of like the old rock star cliche, right? I imagine that does still happen, but at least in this show, the family focus was clear, and it was a common thread across all the players they profiled. I wonder, too, if that is somewhat unique to sports, that the whole family is supporting and encouraging and even participating in athletes' careers. And certainly to that extent. You don't hear about that as much in the other big paths to fame and fortune, music, acting, writing, etc. Those tend to be seen as alternative paths, right? Like rejecting the normal path and even maybe being a rebellious path. How can you make any money at that? The dad says, when are you going to get a real job? And so on. I mean, sports is still a ridiculously unlikely path. Almost no one makes it, at least to the pros. But it is at least a path that you can see and recognize and strategize, high school, club, college, pro. It's a known quantity that someone can understand and follow. It's all mostly a meritocracy, so you can create a plan and measure results and keep working toward the goal. It's not like that in the arts. There's no definition of good, no defined pathway to success. It's not at all a meritocracy. It's kind of the opposite. You really are more on your own there, even with a supportive family. But sports and athletes, at least as far as this show, and I guess others I've seen too, is very family focused. And I love that. There's one particular story with LeBron James, his son Bronny, who's also a top young basketball player, suffered a cardiac arrest during practice in 2023. He was 18 at the time. Turns out he had a congenital heart defect. He got it repaired back in the game pretty quickly. So it ended up, it's a good story, but you can imagine how shocking and scary that was for everyone just on a personal, parent, and family level. He talked about that in the show. He also said that Bronny was the first person in his family to go to college. LeBron didn't actually go to college. He went straight to the NBA out of high school. So he hadn't done it. No one else in the family had done it until his son did, and he was super proud of that. So again, I was just really struck with the role families play in these guys' careers. It's great from a human perspective, but also for the mental game, it's a huge plus. First, it's really helpful to be able to take a longer view of what's happening. The experience of competition is so intense, and the ups and downs can be so extreme. You really want some way to smooth things out in your mind and help you take all that in stride. And families are perfect for that. Naomi Osaka, I talked about her recently, the great tennis player, coming back to the tour after having her first child, her daughter. And also she's famously struggled with her mental game early in her career. She said, if I lose now, my daughter still loves me the same. That's exactly the kind of perspective that family connections can do for you. And it's super helpful. Also, they can give you another reason to strive to be your best in the first place. I heard that all the time in all the sports talks. My family, I do this for them. I want to give my parents things they never had because they sacrificed to me. I want to be a role model for my kids to believe in themselves. All kinds of things like that you can totally understand and appreciate. So that's the other thing that really jumped out at me in Starting Five, the lovely and critical role families play in athlete success. So what are the lessons here for the rest of us? First, if you are the parent of a junior athlete who's on this path, hoping to play in college, maybe even beyond, you're probably already in the middle of a lot of this. I guess I would just say, make sure you stay aware of the role you're playing, not only in moving their career forward, but also in providing that foundation and connection and perspective that's so helpful and important. Also, do what you can to help them have a rich, full life outside of sports. I mean, there's only so much any parent can do to influence a teenager's social life, but we can encourage them to stay connected with friends, of course, do their homework, do fun things outside of sports, do things with the family when you can, meals together, movies, games, vacations. It all helps. Basically, we want to help them have as normal a life as possible alongside their life as an athlete, and to be at least somewhat aware of how important and helpful that is to their success now and into the future. And by the way, these indirect mental game improvements are also helped by the same mental game skills we talked about earlier that are so critical to their success during the game. Cognitive control, emotional self-regulation, impulse control. The things that keep us from performing at our best in competition are the same things that keep us from being our best in the rest of our lives. Distraction, lack of focus, lack of confidence, inconsistent willpower. So developing the core mental game skills that we happen to teach in the Raise Your Game Sports Academy is the quickest way to make improvements, both as an athlete directly and in these indirect areas that still play such an important part in your game and your life in general. RaiseYourGame.com for more on our training programs. In any case, that is the end of our discussion of the mental game lessons from the great Netflix series, Starting Five. Hope you found that helpful. If you haven't watched part one yet, make sure you do that too. There's a link in the notes. That one, honestly, has more practical content in it. I'm sure you'll enjoy that as well. As always, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, keep up the good work. I'll see you next time.